responsibility for my own self-indulgence and self-sabotage. And I'm sorry I led you to this. I hope it's not what killed you. Humans, maybe we had to get broken apart to be made stronger. The divine essence, accompanied by gods from above, beasts from below, so they all know they're about to die. Well, there's always obstacles out there.
Whatever you put in that tub was culprit.
I know this is short notice, but do you have any ideas?
I have an idea. Fail to bring forth what is within you, and what you fail to bring forth will destroy you.
Boom, there you go. That was a trailer for Alchemy of the Spirits, now available on Prime Video and rolling out on all video on demand platforms. Make sure you check it out. I'm your boy Kuya P. This is Nerds Rule the World. And as you see on the screen, I have a special guest. So delighted. The co-writer, director, producer of this amazing film, Steve Balderson. Thank you for your time today, sir.
Hey, happy to be here.
So excited. So I watched this film today in preparation, wanted to make sure it was fresh. And unlike a lot of other independent films I've seen, and I watch a lot, this was very artistic, had a great soundtrack. I'm curious, your musical appreciation, that really drew me in. And just the way it was shot was very well done. So kudos to that. Again, unlike all the others, and when you have such a glut of competition, if you will, it's important to stand out. So props to you on doing that with this one, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you. So
it was so very deep. And I want to start there. Where did the inspiration come from? I saw you worked with a couple of 24 stars that I'm very big fans of. Huge fan of that long-running Fox series. How did you get with Xander Berkeley and Sarah Clark to pen this tale?
Well, it's interesting. So I'll tell you the whole story, because I knew Sarah for a few years. We worked on a project together once. I'd met Xander, but I had never worked with him before. And I woke up on, I don't remember what morning it was, and I learned that my mentor had died overnight. And I felt this overwhelming sense of like inspiration. You know how like in Star Wars when Yoda dies, there's like a hologram of him, like nearby. I kind of felt like that with Eric. And I was like, oh my God, he's like all around. And I had this instinct to go and start painting again for no reason. And I got in the Uber, went to Blick Art Studio on Beverly, and I walked in, and there was this guy, this old man with ice blue eyes staring at me from across the room. And it was like searing, this gaze. And as I took a few more steps, I realized it was David Lynch. And yeah, and then I remembered that Eric Sherman, my mentor who had just died, was the one who got Eraserhead shown at the AFM when no one else would show it. And so David was indebted to Eric like his entire life after that moment. And I was like, okay, this is bizarre. And then Eric had introduced David and I in like 99 or 2000. And at that time, David only had a fax machine. He didn't have a phone. So we faxed each other, but we never met in person. And as he's crossing the room and he's still staring at me, I decide I'm sticking my hand out to, introduce myself. And he said, it's so good to see you again. And I'm like, it's really good to see you too. But we've never met, right? Before, like in this world anyway.
Wow.
And
yeah. Oh, I love this energy. I'm an empath.
Totally. It's amazing what this whole moment. So I, tell him that Eric had died, and we go about our business buying art supplies. I get back in my car, and all of a sudden these images of several selections of visuals that I'd sort of been thinking about started flying at me. And by the time I got home, I called Sarah Clark and I said, Sarah, we're making a movie. And I said, do you think Xander would be into it? And she said, he just landed at LAX 30 minutes ago. Why don't you call him? So I called him, and he said, let's meet for coffee somewhere on the West Side. And I'm back in an Uber going to the West Side. And by the time I get to my coffee meeting with Xander, all the visuals have sort of clicked in. And I'm like, hey, it's about a man who wakes up and finds his wife is dead. And, then as he's creating this work, she's may or may not come back to him. And he's like telling me about how he can make a death mask and how he's done this before. And it happens so, this was just in a 4-hour period. Whoa. On this one day. And coupled with some advice that the late, great Karen Black told me on her deathbed, which was essentially, you're the most alive when you're in the unknown. Like when you're going down this road you've been down 1,000 times, what's coming up, what's around the corner. And when you don't know what's coming up, you're really alert and you're very, very present because you don't know. And she was like, in that moment, that's the greatest place to be. That's when you're the most alive. And so all of those experiences were what fed into the genesis of making this movie, which is all essentially about the unknown and death and life at the same time. I don't know. You just saw it. It's so hard to articulate for me anyway.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Yeah. Wow. So in a 4-hour time span, you pretty much can see this film. So you got Xander, I would assume, on board. Sarah's rocking and rolling with you. How long did it take for you to compile the first draft? And how long was that process until you kind of came with your finished script and everything? And who knew Xander had these talents? Like, where did that come from? Oh my God.
I know. When he said, "Oh, I'm a painter," I was like, all right. And I had been to their house once and I kind of remembered seeing one of his paintings on the wall or something and was like, okay, that's really cool. It's a very distinct look, But no, when we got to Maine and I fully understood the spectrum of what he does artistically, it blew me away. I don't think I had anticipated that, at least. I knew he was a good artist, but I didn't realize he was incredible, And I think it was about 6 to 9 months of just prepping and getting the arc done and the story. And I wanted to leave a lot of it up for the unknown. So, using Karen's advice plus being really present in the moment. For instance, we knew what step A was, and we knew what C was, but B could be anything. So as long as we get to a point at which we can have C, we tried all sorts of different things with B, which today I think we have the liberty to do making a movie, and because it's not on film, and it doesn't cost as much. So you really can spend the time exploring all of the different ways you can do B, to get there. And that was a lot of fun.
Wow. All right, everybody. Again, I want to remind y'all, Steve Balderson right here, as you see right now, his film Alchemy of the Spirit is available on Prime Video and will be rolling out on video on demand platforms. So you got this film all together. I would assume with it being, you have Xander already on board, you have Sarah on board. That's pretty much your cast. And I think there's a few other actors you had on this, but small cast. How when we get into production, how long of a shoot was this? I would assume it was very small with everybody you had. How long did it take?
It was, well, it's hard to communicate this because I am so organized that I can accomplish in a day what might take other people 2 or 3. So when I say it was 3 weeks, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But it was a really jam-packed 3 weeks. At the same time, I also don't like working longer than 8 to 6, or 9 to 6 during the day. I value sleep, and I value good meals, and I want my crew to be, happy and healthy and well fed and well slept, and it was a fairly small crew too. We had maybe at the most 10 people total, including actors there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was super fun. And it was done on location in Maine, remotely, in the middle of nowhere. And literally the bed and breakfast that a lot of us stayed in was across the street from the place that we were filming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you couldn't. I mean, there was nothing to do there. Like you just there was the little cafe, or you were at work. I mean, we didn't really take a day off because if it was a day off, we would have nothing to do otherwise. So we just worked every day.
Wow, wow. I actually lived in Maine for a brief time when, as a military kid, used to have travels to Moosehead Lake. I don't know how far away you were from that, but you're saying like small town. It's very few and far between. It's not there's not a lot of city up there. But did you get to see any moose?
I did not see a moose. We were in Limerick, which was
okay.
maybe an hour and a half northwest of Portland.
Okay. Gotcha. I was on the coast.
Oh, cool.
Excellent.
It's beautiful there. It's so beautiful.
Oh yeah. So we rock it out in 3 weeks. And from what I understood earlier, when you were saying, when you were putting it together, did it change while I would assume filming? Because you said you had your points, your major plot points or whatever. Did you get everything you wanted on film, and when you went into post, and how much did the script change in between all of that?
It didn't really change once we started.
Okay.
There were some moments where, we would try out B, and it was terrible, and then we would, do it again, and it was wonderful. Or I don't know. The brilliant thing about doing something that way is, so long as you get kind of the basic elements that you've written down, and then you open it up to have fun and explore lots of stuff, you can always just settle with what was originally conceived.
Exactly.
And
totally.
So that's what we did. The other thing was a lot of the planning with my cinematographer, Hanuman Brown Eagle, was spent figuring out what could we do in camera that didn't require CGI. And there was,
I like that.
Some of those things that it looks a little dreamy or like a little out of focus and like kind of weird.
Yeah.
What he did was he actually like took the lens off the camera and like twisted it in such a way, like it was this whole thing that was just like jerry rigged so that it was distorting the actual film that we were shooting.
Oh, I dig that. That's like practical effects in a way, that's pretty sweet. I love that. I'm a filmmaker myself. That's what got me behind doing interviews like this, to get further inspiration. So I also want to thank you for that inspiration as well. As a creative and as a reviewer, this only, increases my creativity and inspiration. So thank you for what you did with this film.
Oh, cool.
Definitely.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's so much fun to play with stuff like that. It's like, in my film Firecracker, which was shot on 35 millimeter, in 2003, it came out in 2005. That's the one that has Karen Black and then Mike Patton from Faith No More in it. I always asked the DP if I could like open the gate during filming so that we could get that raw flush of light on the negative. And he was like, we can do that in post or whatever. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't look the same. It's like you can fake it, but if it's actually distorting the thing that you're trying to capture, there's something about it that you can't fake, that gets really cool. Like, it's so much fun. I think people are just hesitant once you've ruined it, the image, you can't go back. Right.
That is true. Returning back to production. So you, like you said earlier, you had, back in the creative writing process, you had Sarah already, in a way. You reached out to her. Xander, hey, why don't you reach out to him? He's coming in. What was it like finally being on set, working with Sarah and Xander and capturing, and bringing your story that the three of y'all kind of penned together earlier on, now being on set, bringing it to life? What was that like?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, there was another thing. Xander had a book called Unobstructed Universe, which was about a man communicating with his dead wife through a psychic. And a lot of the elements in the book reminded me of things that Alan Watts would talk about, philosophizing about, the spirit and the human being and the universe and all that business. So while we were filming, it was really, really fun to explore that, to like just kind of be a philosopher / filmmaker while we were doing it. And there were lots of really beautiful, they're actually married in real life. So it was kind of interesting to watch the dynamic between two people who knew each other so well, you know, and I don't know if the dynamic would have been different had they not actually been married, you know, had it just been two random actors. I mean, they're both really talented, so, you know, it could be the same, but it was pretty great. And the fact that we were such a small team of people, it was really, really intimate. So, you know, when you're talking about grief, I mean, it must have been really, really difficult for him to play "My wife is dead and this is my wife."
Yeah.
In real life, you know? Think about that until just now. But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It was effortless. It was really effortless. And then Mink Stoll plays his art dealer, and she came in like the last few days. So we had filmed everything before Mink got there.
Okay.
And that was super fun. And yeah, it was so much fun. I mean, one of my favorite parts was at the end of every day, we would just spend an hour filming him working on the death masks and his random paintings. It was a different thing each day, whatever he wanted to do. I'm like, let's just go film you, because in all reality, his character, Oliver Black, would be throughout this whole process creating art.
Yeah.
And so at the end of every day, we were like, hey, well, we have about an hour left. Do you want to just go make art and we'll film you? And it was all really, really fun. It was really meditative. The whole thing was really like a meditation, really.
Hell yeah. I dig that. As you know, as fellow creatives, you know, it's those moments where it actually becomes a little bit more real and gives it life. I love just letting that camera sit there and then you just watch, you know, and it's very voyeuristic in a way, but then also it just, you connect it a lot more when you let it linger. I dig that. More and just more great B-roll as well, right? That you can
totally
somewhere.
Yeah. We had so much footage that I mean, we could have just made a documentary on making art separately, you know, like on its own. And I love the idea. I'd also studied a little bit of Ericksonian hypnosis a few years ago, and the rhythm of the movie, which is sort of like this molasses opera that's just kind of going like this the whole time, makes it so that you can actually experience being in a mild trance while watching this movie. Did you feel that? Yes.
And cool. The music added to that. And that's what I also want to bring it to that as well. Choosing the music and getting all that great soundtrack in there. It really, you felt it. It everything was note perfect to where it needed to be. Yeah.
Heather Schmidt is an incredible musician, and she was the one who composed it. And a lot of the stuff she plays herself.
Oh, wow.
And then there are 3 vocals, and the 3 vocals were done by Mary Carmen Camarenda. God, I hope I said her name correctly. And the most amazing thing about her voice, she was singing in Spanish, is she's blind.
Whoa.
And when I shared with her the movie, somehow she got it entirely. Like when I say visually, it wasn't visual because she couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But she got it. It's like she did see it somehow. And I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
And then I asked her if, you know, she would make some songs for it. And the songs she chose to make, the lyrics when translated, are about exactly what you're seeing. So it's like, it's the craziest, like, coolest thing. The other piece of music in it that I really loved was the, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. It's the very last song. It's like, there's a famous Elgar's Nimrod. I was really particular about that song in general. And Heather had to hunt down an orchestra in like Eastern Europe for us to like find somebody who did it, and it wasn't like as expensive as like the, you know, Philharmonic or whatever the hell. but yeah, the scoring and the sound design for that movie was so much fun. And it was those elements I didn't want to rush. So they took the longest.
I was about to say, like, I was also wondering if that was your most expensive aspect of this film, being an indie film, because it had such great music as well as the cinematography. Like, how much, cost wise did it go into? Because I feel like you had Steve, you had Xander, and you had Sarah, already writing, producing with you. So I would assume, production wise, you saved on some costs there. Small cast. It looked like you pumped a lot into the cinematography and the soundtrack, which again to me made the film, and just well done. Again, kudos to you. But it just as a filmmaker, I'm like, man, how did they do this? How much did it cost to do that? You kind of think about the numbers game a little bit.
Well, you do, and yeah. I am always hesitant to tell people the truth. I want to tell you the truth, but I don't know if I want to do it right now.
We can take it offline, maybe.
Yeah. I will tell you offline. We'll email each other, because part of the whole trick is, as a filmmaker, ask yourself, how much do you think you're going to make on this movie?
Exactly.
And if you have a demographic or a market, a niche market, who's going to buy this to watch it? Mm-hmm. What are the types of persons? And it doesn't matter what the story is. You could do, a movie about sports. You could do a movie about some guy downtown that has a tattoo shop. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're aware of what income you're going to get, and then, or what you suspect, right? Yeah. You never know. Mm-hmm. And then my advice is always to make it for at least half that, if not less.
Right.
Yeah. And then if you have to, there's still a dollar value to everything that you participate in. Mm-hmm. So even if you say, okay, we're going to spend $100,000 to make a movie, you don't have to spend $100,000 cash, but everything that has a value equal to that $100,000, it needs to be counted somehow, mm-hmm. And, whether that's, we had a lot of, I paid them for the location to shoot there. So that wasn't donated, but it should have been, because they owned it.
Yeah.
But there were other things, some of the food was sponsored, you have to take anything you can get as a filmmaker. Once I did a movie that was in Mexico at this hotel, and the hotel covered our room and board for 4 weeks.
Wow.
And in exchange for us filming there. So it was a little bit like, we didn't have to pay to film there, and we got to live there for free. But we still had to do certain things in order to, get the exchange of the trade back and forth. I always encourage everybody, any filmmaker, to think about trades and sponsors, even if you have some budget, even if you have some money, mm-hmm. whether it's $10,000 or $1 million, still try to get the best bang for your buck, and be creative about how you can find more resources.
Definitely. Thank you, Steve, for that. I know all my filmmaker friends that are fans of what I do and watch what I do are going to love this inside baseball, if you will, because, we're all about here trying to make some great projects, and I dig that. So, well, let's get back to, coming out to the people. You toured the festival circuit. I see a little bit, won a few awards. What has the reception been? And from everybody in the community checking this out, how did your partners and collaborators on this, Xander, Sarah, of seeing the final product and getting the rewards for the greatness, and you yourself, obviously getting those awards for this amazing project?
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, because this was my 17th feature, and it's the one that's won the most awards and acclaim. Which is great. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And I didn't think it would, because it's such an interesting sort of like meditation. I mean, it's about grief, but it's also, a couple of times people compared it to a Tarkovsky movie. And while I love Tarkovsky, there's sometimes I can't watch it makes me crazy. I want to pull my hair out, but I still love them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's been pretty amazing. And some magical moments. There was this woman when we screened Infantis Porto in Portugal, she came up to me afterwards and she had tears in her eyes and she couldn't speak any English, but she tried as hard as she could to communicate to me how important it was for her. And somebody had to come over and sort of like try to translate for her. And it was so special. Like, it was just really, really special. There was a couple who came up to me in Santa Fe who, were haunted by it. And then they sent me an email like 3 days later, like they couldn't get it out of their minds. I had a person who is a grief counselor who, a lot of their clients are helping people move, life after loss and, suffering the death of a loved one or any sort of number of things. And I was pretty surprised at some of those reactions. I don't know if I anticipated that demographic being one to really respond well to this.
Oh, that's always amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't foresee that. I just thought of it as a crazy art movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Awesome.
Film festivals are the best. And so lucky that by the time, we premiered in 22 in February in Portugal and then went around the globe, essentially, that we were actually able to be there in person. And there's nothing better than meeting other directors and writers and producers at film festivals. I encourage everybody to always go to them. And I know that a lot of them are, virtual now, and they're doing like the double virtual and some in person. But the last festival we did for Alchemy was at Another Hole in the Head in San Francisco. And it was a blast. And the people who run that also run SF Indie Fest. And they're just so great. And the venue was amazing at the Roxy Cinema. It was, luckily I didn't have a project that came out during the first part of lockdown. Otherwise I would have pulled my hair out. But there's nothing better than going to film festivals. It's so exciting. I love every minute of it.
Completely agree. And when you put all that hard work in, you want to feel that live feedback from that audience and get those vibes and that energy. It's inspiring. Congratulations, totally. Steve. Again, everybody, it's now available on Prime, Amazon Prime Video, and is going to be rolling out on all major VOD platforms. Steve Balderson. For those fans that have seen the film, I have to ask this question because they've now, man, this guy is amazing with his film. Now I think I'm going to check out all of his past work. I'm going to check out Firecracker. I'm going to check out The Casserole Club. What projects do you have coming up soon as well, or maybe are in production that you can talk about? Because I'm sure there's certain things you can't put it all out on the table, and or just how can my people follow you and be you're a big fan and they can just consume everything that you put out there.
Amazing. Linktree /Balderson BALDERSON is the easiest because it has the list of everything. Or stevebalderson.com, and we'll get you eventually everywhere. Next is a mini series.
Ooh.
And it's already done. And I'm working with my colorist this week to finish up the final color, and then my sound designer, who is Sebastian Zunino, who did the sound design for Alchemy of the Spirit, also is doing this new one. Oh, wait, I'm still here.
You're still here.
Sorry.
No worries.
It's almost done. And it's a satire.
Okay.
On reality television dating shows like The Bachelorette.
Ooh.
Only it's set in the near future, like a Black Mirror episode or Hunger Games. And instead of sending the guys home with a rose, she has to kill them on live TV.
I'm in. Okay, I'm in. When you can speak more on that, because I feel like there's certain things you can't talk on yet. I'd love to have you back. I'd love to give you your flowers for that and show love and promote it to the people. Steve, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Everybody, y'all, check out Alchemy of the Spirit right now on Amazon Prime Video, and we'll be rolling out on all major video platforms. I'll also have those links that Steve mentioned, the link tree, everything, stevebalderson.com in the description below, so you can click on that after you've checked out this interview. But this was truly a pleasure, Steve. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Definitely. Everybody, Steve Balderson, Alchemy of the Spirit, available right now. I am Kuya P. This is Nerds Rule the World. We do rule the world. Go check it out. Steve Balderson, y'all. Alchemy of the Spirit.